All right. Hey, good afternoon. Here we are, midway through May, and you got to love it. I talked with some of my friends on the East Coast and some of them up in the mountains just to the west of me. And yeah, yeah, it's springtime. It's springtime, which also means springtime in Colorado. Guess what that means? The occasional snowstorm, the cold, 50-degree rain, but not really a but. And, and today is nice and sunny outside. If you could see it, but it's way too complicated for me to turn the camera around and show you what's happening outside because then I'll never get it back straight again. So, what I want to talk to you about today is conflict resolution. So, you got to think about it in a couple of things. And let's start off with what conflict is. Conflict is two things that don't get along, right? It's pure and simple. And what is resolution? Resolution is coming to terms, agreement. And if we have a conflict resolution, then we got something we disagree and something we've agreed to. It's okay. And we're putting those together. So we're taking the conflict and we're resolving it. The conflict's no longer a conflict. It is no longer a problem. So why is that important? Why why do I care? Why do you care whether or not a conflict is resolved? Because that becomes a cancer in a relationship. If you cannot resolve something with somebody you are in a relationship with, then that is a problem. And that means that relationship can no longer be whole. There is a gap, there is a mistrust, there is something going on that is always a distraction that keeps that relationship from having full trustworthiness and authenticity in what they are doing, the parties that are conflicting against each other. And when that happens, whether it's a personal relationship that you have with a friend, a spouse, a partner, or teams in a business or an individual in a business or whatever it is, that conflict, if it's not resolved, the relationship will fail. It will never be successful. Yeah. Can your business win still? Sure. Will you have a culture of success and innovation that I talk about in many other places? No. You will push through it and deal with it, but you will never have that culture. And that culture will continue to dissolve. That conflict will continue to be a problem in all interactions. I've worked with many clients and I've worked with where there's been, we refer to it as a personality conflict or uh, a cultural conflict or an age conflict, whatever it is. It's still a conflict, right? Describe it how you want. In the end, it's still a conflict. And that conflict presents a problem. That conflict prevents that organization from working with this organization. Or more likely and more probable, that person from working with this person because they distaste and distrust each other. When they have a conflict, when two people have a conflict and they do not resolve it, it is an underlying problem between the two of them. And that underlying problem affects all interactions that these individuals have between themselves. So if we're in a team, in a business, and we have a conflict for whatever reason, whatever may have caused that conflict, we can't work together because we don't trust each other. Yeah, you can put us in the box and say, you got to work together. You know, you got two brothers that are fighting. So you put them facing each other, sitting Indian style until they resolve it. Did you hear that? They resolved it. But if you take those two brothers and they get in a fight and you put them apart and you never bring it back together to resolve the issue that caused it, guess what? That issue will always be there. And that issue will always be an effect on that relationship. The same thing happens in your business. If you have an individual in your business who has a conflict, whatever it may be, doesn't like the way the coffee was made, doesn't like that you call them at 8 o'clock at night, and you do not resolve that, that will be baggage that is there every time you have an interaction with that person. And by the way, if you can't read the board behind me, I think I used the wrong color this time. What it says, I'm Otis McGregor, as it says on the screen. Tribe and Purpose, that's my business. It says it on my hat too, in case you can't read it on the board. And what we're talking about today is conflict resolution. I tried to be cute and put it in red because conflict, I'm going to tell you why red is okay in this case, and conflict is okay, and resolution. So if you start to think about these things, how do you deal with it? Why is it so important? Again, it becomes, if it's not handled, it becomes an underlying cancer in your organization, in your team, that prevents your team from reaching its full potential of performance. And what do we all want? We all want a team that performs at the level of flow, in a flow state. You can't have that if you have a conflict between individuals in that team. I don't care how big the team is. You cannot have it. So, how do we solve conflict? How do we get to the resolution of a conflict? Well, first thing, what comes to my mind, and when it comes to my mind, when I ever think of a conflict, is I'm going to punch that dude in the nose, right? If I got a conflict with somebody, I'm going to punch him in the nose. Guess what? That doesn't work, because that does not resolve the conflict. That instigates it. That moves it to the next level. You can talk about things going on in the world today. Russia and Ukraine, Israel and Hamas, and Palestine. Guess what? In order to resolve it, it doesn't take force. Force happens, comes back with force. If my first step to resolve a conflict is to punch the dude in the nose, guess what? He's very likely going to do what? Punch me back in the nose. Force denotes force. It's matching back and forth, back and forth. That does not resolve the conflict. The only time that resolves the conflict is if the person who disagrees with you is eliminated. Do you really think by punching somebody in the nose you're going to change their mind? I don't think so. It's not going to help them see my way. It's not going to resolve the conflict. Not a good technique, as is proven, and you've heard me talk on a couple of whiskey words about the cost and the human cost of war. But back to the subject at hand, because I can tell you right now, as much as I'd like to be able to come to peace agreements through this live on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube, that ain't going to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you resolve the conflicts that you're dealing with in your business and in your life. And step one is not to punch the other dude in the nose. So strike that course of action from your plan. Okay. Step one is to understand why you believe the way you do. What is it that I want to achieve if I'm the one who's conflicting with the other person? What is it that I want to achieve? What is the outcome I am looking for? Next is, what is the outcome the other person. We could call it this because, right? I'm going to play it from my side. The antagonist. If I'm the protagonist, they're the antagonist. So what is it that the antagonist wants? Why do they want it? What is the underlying meaning? I'll give you a great example from my rugby coaching days. My good friend, Amy. Amy and I are very passionate about growing the game of rugby at the high school level. And she and I had a conflict on how to do it. And what we determined was, in the end, our outcome was the same. What we wanted to achieve was to get more high school kids, boys and girls, playing rugby. And when we determined that, when we said yes, and we had this agreement over a cup of coffee, and we realized that we were on the same side, we just had a different strategy for it. She had her way that she thought was very important and would be very successful, and I had my way, which I thought was very important and would be very successful. And what we decided was we would support each other, not conflict, and accept each other's courses of action, accept each other's strategy to achieve the same outcome. Now, here's the real problem you have. I'm going to put my pen down because I get in the habit of shaking it. Here's the real problem you have. What if the outcome is different? What if what you're trying to achieve is different? What if I want to grow the business to $50 million and you are very happy with keeping the business where it is at $15 million in revenue? What if that's the conflict? Let's dive deeper into it. Why? Understand the why. When we understand the why you want to keep the business at 15 mil, why I want to grow it to 50 mil, I should choose different numbers so they don't sound the same. Why you want to keep the business at 12 million and I want to grow it to 50 million? Well, let's talk about it. Maybe the reason you say stay at 12 million is because you're like, hey, I'm really comfortable here. And, you know, when we start to grow the business into larger than 12 million, then we're going to have to hire more people. It's going to change. We'll probably have to move offices. We're going to have to do these different things, different resources, different client base, and all these sort of things. And I really like where we are. I like my business where we are. Okay. Otis, why do you want to go to 50 million? Well, I see 50 million as a challenge. It's a growth. And as we grow to 50 million, you know what we're doing? We're making a larger impact. We're hiring more people. We're giving more people opportunities to grow. And you know what else we're doing when we do that? We're giving them opportunities to increase the value of themselves, impact more people. There's a common thread there, isn't there? That's what we look for. In this conflict, we have to find the common thread. Think back to elementary math. I don't know what they're teaching now, but I know when I was a kid and we had to do fractions, what did we have to do? You can't take 1/4 and add it to, I'm going to test myself, and add it to 1/3, right? 1/4 and 1/3, we can't do that. We have to do what? We have to find a common denominator between the denominator 4 and the denominator 3. I'm going to risk, I'm not even going to do that. Nope. Not going to do math on the board. It's even worse. We have to do that. And what is that common denominator? 12. Okay. So what is 1/4 converted to 12? To 12ths, quarters to 12ths. 3/12, right? Well, what is 1/3 converted to 12ths? 4/12. If I take, somebody check me on the math, please. If I take 4/12 and 3/12 and add them together, I get 7/12, right? That's common denominator. That's what we have to search for in order to determine the resolution of the conflict. It is not an easy thing. Sometimes it takes a long time to understand it. We have to dive deep into truly what is the why. What is it really that you want to achieve? Because that in it becomes the place where the common ground lies so we can resolve the conflict. Now I'm going to take a step back. Because if we don't address the conflict, it builds. I talked about it becoming a cancer in your organization. It becomes a weight. It becomes something that is in your head every time that you interact. Even to the point, if it's not brought out in the open, that it becomes adversarial and that relationship cannot be successful. Your team has a problem. If your team does not get along, I don't care how big it is, if there is a conflict within your team, it does not get along and it cannot operate and be successful. Now let me check my notes here real quick. So going back to the rugby story, what is it that we did? I supported her, not, rah, rah, rah supporter stuff. But in the end, I knew that the outcome, I didn't believe that was the path. That was the correct course of action. I didn't think it would be successful for a number of reasons from my point of view, whereas Amy believed it would be successful and didn't think what I wanted to do through growing rugby would be successful. But we resolved it because we addressed it. We brought it out in the open, as opposed to some of the other people in that organization over the years who failed to do that. And when they failed to do that, that created an animosity in the entire league, which created a division in the league because nobody wanted to face the conflict and sit down and work it out because they didn't see the value of the outcome. They saw self-serving. And when you have somebody in a conflict who is so tied to their point of view, that becomes the narcissistic self-serving solution, which means my way is the only way. So how do you handle that? It depends. Is that person the leader of the organization? And if they are the type of person that says, well, I'm the only one that knows how to do this, therefore anything that you say and recommend is dumb and wrong, and everything I say is correct and the best, that's a problem. That's not a good culture to be in. And I highly recommend, if you are in that culture, look for something different, because it ain't healthy. It ain't healthy mentally and physically, because the mental aspect of a culture like that will drain you mentally. And when you are drained mentally, you will be drained physically. It's not healthy. If that person that believes they're the only ones that know how to do this, they are the smartest person in the room, they are the best thing since sliced bread. If that person will not change, and that person is an island unto himself. Hey, boss, talking to you. It's time for you to make a decision and help that individual excel someplace else. Because that individual, that person on your team that is causing the conflict and not willing to address it, not willing to find common ground needs to find someplace else to go. Because if you do not, boss, CEO, whatever the title is, if you do not handle that, you will destroy the culture that you have. Your team will no longer function as a team. You will have an individual who causes animosity and angst amongst the team, and you'll have everybody else. And you know what everybody else talks about? What an asshole that guy is. Guess what that means? If they're talking about that and that's what they're thinking about, you're paying them to think about what an asshole that guy is. I don't know about you, but as a business owner myself, I don't want to pay people to think about somebody else being an asshole, right? I want to pay people for the job I hired them to do, for the skill sets and talents that they are there to do, not to be preoccupied with that guy's an asshole and I don't want to work with him. If I have to, in order to keep my job, I will. But hey, boss, back to you. You are the one that has to fix this. You are the one that has to handle this situation. Now, it requires a lot of personal confidence, personal capital, because nobody likes conflict. There's a few people, I've known them. They'll argue for the sake of arguing. I'm not counting them. They're outliers. They're not on my team. Wouldn't have them. I'm talking about taking the time, sitting down with that person who refuses to find the common ground and telling them, hey, dude, we need you to be part of this team. We need you to open up and see the other point of view. And the only way you can see the other point of view is through understanding who you are. That person, the narcissistic asshole island, guess what? That person is not confident in who they are. They are not confident in who they are and what they want and who they want to be. And they get their confidence through conflict with others. That person's causing a problem in your team. Address it before you start to lose your talent. Address it before your business implodes because your people cannot get along. So, we make it sound like conflict is a bad thing. I'm here to tell you, conflict ain't bad. Conflict is good. The reason conflict is good is because it's a different point of view. It helps us see something different. I do not want to be surrounded with people that think exactly like I do. A bunch of yes men, to use that term. You know the term diversity? That's what I want. I want people with different points of view. I want them to say, hey, what if we did it this way? Or I don't think that's the best way. I want them to ask those questions. That's conflict still. But we make it sound like this is big, bad thing. I'm here to tell you, you want conflict on your team, but you have to resolve it. You have to come to terms with it. It is not this evil thing. You know, there's a lot of people out there who are like, that makes it hard, Otis. That makes it real hard when I got to deal with somebody that disagrees with me. Good. Because you'll be a better leader. And you might learn something. They may just have the right way, a better way of doing something. They might just have a unique perspective, just enough to help you win that next bid. to help you succeed, to help your business grow successfully. So conflict is good. Don't think about it in bad. This whole conflict resolution terminology. You see it in Harvard Business Review and all these other colleges and universities even teach classes on conflict resolution. Good. Conflict is good because I want somebody to come to me and say, hey, why are you doing it that way? You know, is that really the best way? Have you thought about doing it this way? I don't really think that's a good way of doing it, Otis. Okay, great. However, it has to be good, healthy conflict. Good, healthy conflict is when somebody says, hey, I disagree with that. When I was on Special Forces team, we did that all the time. I got told a lot of times, hey, that's not the way to do it, Otis. We ain't done it that way. And I would say, depending on what it was, what the situation was, because I would listen to it, understand their perspective and their reasoning, and justifying why they believed that was the way to do it. And then I would make the decision. I'd make the decision of whether or not that was the way to do it. And the difference, here's the resolution, is they said, Roger that. And they moved out. And they moved out completely and fully because they stepped into it and believed, hey, I made my bid. I thought that was the way to do it. But you know what? The boss said this is the way we're going to do it. And I understand why the boss said that way. So we're going to do it that way. And I'm going to support that. That's conflict resolution. But it happened, and we were a successful organization, and businesses are successful because you listen, you hear it, you address it, and you don't belittle it. Conflict is good if you allow it to come in. Now, if you say every time somebody conflicts what you got to do, what your plan is, what your path is, if you go, that's stupid, that's dumb, we're not doing that, guess what you're doing? You're shutting it down. And when you're shutting down the availability of conflict in your organization, you're shutting down innovation because you're telling them that you're the smartest guy in the room. Man, when you do those things, when you shut somebody down, your entire team, your entire organization down, and say, nah, we're not doing that. Nah, we're not doing that. Yeah, I hear you, Bill. No. I hear you, Dave. Nope. Nope. That's stupid, man. That never worked. Guess what? You just shut down any thoughts and any recommendations from a different perspective, diversity of thought into your organization. So that now, guess what? There's only one person on the team that's smart now. The rest of us are just here mocking time. Why would I do anything? Because the boss is just going to tell me no. I've been in one of those organizations. Why would I suggest a new way of doing this? Because every time I've suggested it, the boss said, no, we're not doing that. Every time any of my peers suggested it, the boss said, no, we're not doing that. Guess what? We all said, you know what, screw it. 5 o'clock yet, I'm going home. 4:59, I'm out. Because that person, the boss, the guy in charge in that organization didn't accept conflicting ideas and strategies because he was unwilling to address it because he, in my opinion, lacked the confidence in himself to look at different ways and different approaches that would still achieve the same outcome. And because of that, that organization was falling apart. Went from a very strong, very successful organization and was slowly dwindling down from 1,000 people, 600, 700, because contracts were being lost, people were getting laid off, and business was faltering because the leadership was unwilling to listen and accept conflict and address it properly to create a solution, a common ground. Conflict is good when it's done in that sense. When it's done in a calm sense. I'm not talking about arguments. I'm not talking about having to take people and push them apart. That's a type of conflict. I'm talking about sit down at the table and let's address this. I want to hear your point of view. That's interesting. Why do you believe that? Okay, thank you. Now you listen to me. Same thing. Okay, thank you. Got it. All right, I understand why you believe that. I understand why you think that is the best course of action to follow. That is the way that we should go. I understand that. I hear you. Now, your thoughts on mine. Okay, good. Do I have to accept his? In order to resolve the conflict, do I have to move over to his side of the table? No. What I have to do is understand his perspective and accept that that's his thought. And depending on the situation, that may be all we need to do. I may just need to, like my good friend Amy. We had that understanding. This is the way she wants to do it, and this is the way I want to do it. And we'll continue down that way. We still do. So, conflict can be good as long as it's not allowed to become a cancer. Or if conflicting ideas are smashed by the leadership. Because conflicting ideas just might be the next best thing since sliced bread for your business. But you as the leader, if you do not listen and accept and understand and hear why that person believes that, don't accept the conflict, you don't allow it to be a conflicting idea, then guess what? Shutting down innovation. Not a good culture for your team. So, if you want to have a successful team, you want to create a culture in your organization that will enable your team, your business to launch the next level of success. If you are a government contracting business, small business, been having success using the small business set-asides, whether they're 8As, Hub Zone, SDVOSB, woman-owned, all those things, all those great opportunities that the U.S. federal government sets aside for businesses, and you want to be successful in graduating out of that business size, then give us a call at Tribe and Purpose. We have a team of fractional COOs who are experts in setting your business up for that next level of growth. Because if you aren't intentional, you will fail. There's not a whole lot of businesses in the 50 million to 100 million range. And that's why, because it's tough. It's a hard place to be because you're not big and you're not small. And it takes intentional effort to survive that phase of business growth. And with the Tribe and Purpose fractional COO team, we'll help you get through that no man's land of not big, not small. So go to 10xyourteam.net. Check it out. You can learn more from our YouTube channel, listen to our podcast, watch our podcast, 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. You can learn more about our leadership development system, the Green Beret Leadership Program for basic leadership, the premium leadership program for those managers that are already kicking ass and you want them to succeed even more. And you want help as an executive? You want to improve your leadership? We've got an executive leadership program also. And finally, our done for you, our fractional COO team will help launch your business to that next level of success. Don't risk it. Too many businesses fail. Don't let yours be one of those that fails on graduation. Hey, thanks for joining us today. We'll see you again next month. And check us out. Don't ever forget to go on to YouTube. Type in 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. If you type in 10X, it'll show up. 10X Your Team. And subscribe. Subscribe to our channel. That way, when I do these lives, and follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook, when I do these lives, you'll get those notifications because I want you to be successful. We are creating a legacy of leaders, and that takes your actions to help us do that.